Today, students, we're going to be looking at how to draw intervals on the staff, okay? We're going to be looking at the key of C again, all right? So starting with the key of C, when we talk about an interval, the definition of an interval is the distance from one note to the next note, all right? There are melodic intervals and there are harmonic intervals. Melodic intervals are when you have a note followed by another note. So in other words, they're the distance between these two notes, okay, would be a melodic interval. And then if I had notes that were stacked on top of each other, okay, then these would be what we call harmonic. So these are melodic when they're separated, and these are harmonic when they are stacked on top of each other, okay? So melodic, separate, harmonic, stacked, or together, played at the same time. All right, so if we are in the key of C, and I'm going to draw my treble clef here, extend it, coming down, circling the second line from the bottom. All right, and here we are at C, okay? And I want a melodic interval of what's called a second. Now, a second means from one note to the very next note, up or down. And in this instance, since we're going to the right, we're talking about the note that goes up or to the right on the piano. So here we have C, okay, and then we have going to a D. Well, since D is only one step away, C we count as 1, D would be counted as 2. So this would be an interval of a second, okay? So we'd write just 2 in D represents second. Okay, now if we want to go and we're going to skip, say we're going from a line and we skip D and we go to the very next line, then we're talking about an interval of a third because we skipped the second, and this is C, skip D, and moving to E would be an interval of a third. So we write 3 RD, okay? So that's an interval of a third. So you can kind of see, even if you don't know the letter names, you can see that they're a third apart just because the line to the very next line is a third, and a space to the very next space is a third as well. All right, so here we are. We're starting at C again, and we want to go a fourth. Well, we're skipping D and we're skipping E, and we're going to F, which is the first space. So this would be an interval of a fourth, and we just write 4TH. So C to F is a fourth. Now you can obviously see that these two are very close together. So you can see that they're a second apart. And you can see a line to the very next line is a third, easily seen apart. A fourth is a little bit more difficult to see, okay, because you're skipping so many notes. All right, so now here we go. I'll draw my treble clef again. And I want to go a fifth. So I start at C. I'm going to skip the line here, and I'm going to go to the next line. So when I skip a line, okay, and then go to the next line, or if I'm on a space and I skip the next space and go to the next space, then we're looking at an interval of what's called a fifth, okay? So C to G is a fifth, all right? And if I go C and I go to the space up here, now you can see that that's a much further distance than, say, the fourth is, okay? But again, they're just as awkward as it is because it's not as easy as a line to a line. So this is a little bit difficult, but you see the space is a lot further, so you know it's obviously not a fourth. So this is what we call an interval of a sixth, okay? So C to A, this is a C and that's A, so C to A would be a sixth. All right, and if we want to go a seventh, how much further? Well, we simply are just going to go up a step here, right? All right, so C to B is going to be what we call a seventh. Again, as the notes get further apart, it's a little bit more difficult to be able to count the intervals. And then the last one is what we call C to C up here, okay? And that's going to be called an octave, not an eighth, but an octave. So we're going to put 8 VA, okay? And that indicates the interval of an eighth or an octave, okay? So it's the same note. If this is a C and that's a C, if they have the same letter name, okay, so they are an octave apart. So these are intervals that are going up. Now, you can do the same thing going down as you did going up. So let's look at some examples of how we would go down if we're talking about intervals, all right? So I'm going to start at the top of the staff, because if I start at the bottom and go down, we're going to end up in another staff. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at C up here, and we want to go a second down. So C down to B is a second, right? Because you just moved one. So C to B is a second. All right, good. And then C down to the next space, just like you were going up a space, would be a third. Going down would be a third. So this is a third, which is C down to A. Okay? But C up to A is a sixth. C down to A is only a third. Okay? Just like C up to B would be a seventh, C down to B would be a second. All right, here we are at C, and we want to go down to G. You know that if you go from C up to G, it's a fifth. But when you go down to G, it's only a fourth. Okay? So C down to G is a fourth. And then C down to F would be your fifth. Just like F up to C would be a fifth. C down to F is a fifth here. So that's kind of easy because you skipped a space. Remember, a fifth is when you skip a space? So there's a perfect example. And this is a perfect example of a third, a space to a space. All right, so if we go from C down to E, just like F was a fifth, so E is going to be a sixth. Down a sixth. So if we want to write down a sixth, we can just draw an arrow in the down position, showing that we're going down, okay? And that's C down to E. C up to E would be a third. All right, the last one, C down to D is going to be what? Of course, a seventh, because we're going in numerical order. And you can just say down a seventh. So C down to D is a seventh. But C up to D would be a second. All right, so we're here at C again, and we go all the way down to C. All right, again, we're not going to use the word eighth. All right, we're going to use the word octave. So 8 VA. Anytime you see 8 VA, that either means up an octave or down an octave. And here we're going down the octave. So C to C is moving down the octave. Okay? So I guess that's all today for our intervals, and we'll be talking more about intervals in our next video. Thank you.